NFL draft is upcoming here in a couple weeks, so we want to focus and kind of look back on last year's draft, specifically the first round, and give you our grades for each pick. Okay, our grades might differ on some players; they might be the same, but it's how we valued where that player was picked and what their contributions were and what their contributions can be in the future. Okay. And so we're just going to go through starting from pick number one with the Jacksonville Jaguars, go through, give our quick grades. There might be some discussion, if we agree, and just kind of give your thoughts here. Chase, you ready to go and get started?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'll kick us off with the first pick. The Jacksonville Jaguars selected Trayvon Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia, and kind of a surprising move, right? He shot up the draft boards really late, and I graded it as a C. I thought he is an elite athlete. Didn't really have that Myles Garrett first pick that that we've seen in the past from edge rushers up there, but he wasn't supposed to, right? He was a very raw prospect that was just a great athlete that needs time to work out in Jacksonville, and I think he can. But right now, I think that's a C pick based on what they left on the board.
Yeah, for me, it's a D. D as in doo doo. And that's specifically because I think they went with the overly athletic prospect, a lot of potential someone could do, rather than taking somebody that's already proven it, and that's because of Aiden Hutchinson. That's the reason why it's a D for me, is because I saw what Aiden Hutchinson did this past season, and I think if Hutchinson is on the Jaguars this year, maybe they make it. It's possible, right? I know they had to go up against Kansas City, but with Mahomes hurt like that, it's possible maybe they're in the AFC Championship game instead of losing to Kansas City if they have Aiden Hutchinson. So because of the success Aiden Hutchinson had this past season, is why I give that pick a D as a first overall. Um, I just don't like it.
Yeah, definitely one of the lower first overall seasons that we've seen in the past few years. That brings us to pick two with the Detroit Lions, picking the guy we just talked about, Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan. I gave it an A. I think the dude balled out. I think if I would have had a vote, he probably would have been my defensive rookie of the year. Dude destroyed. He had just as many interceptions as the actual defensive rookie of the year, while also piling on the sacks and pressures. This guy took over. It looks like a cornerstone piece for that Dan Campbell defense for years to come, which is kind of scary for my Packers. But I'm great. I'm giving him an A. I think he was a perfect pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. I went as far as A plus. 9.5 sacks, almost double digit sacks. He actually had 3 interceptions, so he had one more interception than Sauce Gardner. He is actually he was my defensive rookie of the year. I think he definitely should have won it. Playing at that level as a defensive position where you're able to sack the quarterback almost double digits plus getting interceptions. I mean, what else did the dude have to do to get that? But whatever, the voters kind of valued Sauce a little bit more. Obviously, I think he deserved it as well, but I think it's an A plus pick. Fantastic rookie season there, only going to get better, and the sky's the limit for him and for that Dan Campbell defense. So A plus pick for me.
Yep. Now we've got the Houston Texans on the clock, I guess. They picked Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU. And I gave it a B minus. Right, he was a really good man coverage. When they drafted him, right, the press came out that Lovie Smith is going to have him cover their number one every time, and then they ran like 65% zone. So he was kind of, his skill set wasn't played to. I think Saleh will fix that. I really like the Stingley pick. Sauce being their next pick kind of salts it, but very different prospects. And the defense that they wanted to run, but for some reason didn't, Stingley was still the pick.
I went with B minus as well. Honestly, for the same thing points you just pointed on. I mean, he allowed a passer rating of 84.9 when targeted this season, so not the best season. But kind of like you said, the defense didn't really play to his strength, and so I think there's a lot of potential there. Obviously, the Sauce Gardner, right afterwards, it's one of those things where maybe they're kind of, hitting their heads, scratching their heads, like, man, did we really pick him over Sauce Gardner? But they did. But I think there's still potential there. Obviously, there's a growing curve for any rookie, especially being drafted that high. There's a little bit more pressure on him. If he would have been taken later in the round, I think we might be looking at it differently. But B minus for me as well.
Yeah. All right. So that puts us on the New York Jets' first pick in this draft, and it was Sauce Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati. I gave him an A plus. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year. he's widely regarded as a top 10 cornerback in just his rookie year. I don't know how much better you could have got in picking at cornerback this year. So I went with A plus.
Same here for me. A plus. Not really a lot to discuss there. The dude ball out, defensive rookie of the year, fantastic pick. Going to be one of those top corners for years to come. A plus for me.
All right, simple, simple. So now we've got the other New York team making their first selection, and the Giants to pick Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon. I graded him as an A, right? He kind of turned on late. He was one of those pieces in that Giants defense that didn't look too bad, right? That Giants defense didn't have a lot of great going on, and I think he was a little bit of that. So I ended up with an A.
I went just below and just did a B plus. I just coming from Oregon, I expected a little bit more from him. I guess there's that learning curve there. So great pick. By all means, I think he has a lot of potential. Didn't really fully realize it quite yet, kind of like Aiden Hutchinson did. I thought so. Just kind of in the system, get a little bit more there. Kind of says some stuff off the field with his mouth I'm not too fond of, but I try to ignore that and just kind of focus on the player, kind of how he plays. So that didn't go into my evaluation, but just turned it on a little bit too late. I don't know, just have higher expectations as a fifth overall pick him there, and so B plus for me.
All right. Yep. I can't argue with that. Now we've got the Carolina Panthers picking 6 here. They picked Akeem Iwanku, and I gave him an A. I thought he was a very good tackle this year, and I would dare to say a franchise guy for their quarterback coming in this year.
Yep, I went A as well. Started every game, and so definitely one of those building block pieces there. Only going to get better, and definitely a solid piece they can have on their line as they move forward, bringing in their franchise guy. So I had him as an A as well.
Perfect. Now we got at pick 7. The New York Giants made their second and final pick in this first round, picking Evan Neal from Alabama. I gave him a B. Right, he looked good, but not as good as some of the other greats come. Some of the, not greats, but some of the other linemen. I went with just a solid B. I didn't think he had a bad rookie year by any means, but I don't think he was the best lineman there after a year in review. Right, I would have picked him here if I was the Giants, but I thought he was a I thought some of the other guys outshined him this year.
Yeah, I actually went D here with that pick. Just didn't really see that much from him at this pick. I think they whiffed it. I think they should have picked Icky there at pick 5. I think Thibodeau would have been there at pick 7, so they could have got the better tackle there with Icky, and then still got Thibodeau. Instead, they made sure they got their guy Thibodeau, and I guess they were okay with either Icky or Neal. Obviously, because that's kind of how they went. I think in the long run, that's gonna, I don't know, kind of bite him in the butt. But I just really wasn't really impressed with Evan Neal this year. And for me, it's because part of this pick as this grade as well is just the value that I have of Icky. I think he is a lot better at that pick, and they had opportunity to get him, and they passed on it and got stuck with Evan Neal. And so yeah, I don't know, not really a fan of kind of how that season went. Obviously, there's time to turn around, but as of right now, I'm going with a grade of a D.
Yeah, and something else about Evan Neal, right? Looked decent in pass block. Only gave up 7 sacks as a left tackle. A rookie is pretty good, but the run blocking was really concerning. Didn't look too great, and to a team that likes to run the ball like the Giants. So I understand that. Now we're going into the Falcons at pick 8. They picked Drake London out of USC. I gave it a B minus, right? He looked good. He had a lot of quarterback issues. We couldn't really see him at his full potential. Arthur Smith is an offensive genius. I think he'll dial him up next year. Great in the red zone. So I just solid B minus.
I went B minus as well. I mean, 72 receptions, 866 yards. And I mean, they were feeding the ball, had 117 targets. So they were really trying to get him the ball. It's a weird dynamic there with him and with um, wow, I can't. Their tight end from Florida is completely escaping me. Kyle Pitts, thank you. Yeah, with Kyle Pitts there, two dynamic players. They just really haven't been able to get the most out of their offense, and maybe that's part of the quarterback's fault. Kind of a revolving door that they tried to bring Mariota in. That kind of didn't work out. He kind of lost his job towards the end, and Ritter came in. It looks like Ritter's the guy here moving forward. So I went B minus. I B minus as well. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be there to move forward. We'll see how it works out this season, but I think it was a quality pick there and a lot of upside for London.
Yeah, I agree. So then now we've got our 9th pick, and this brings up the Seattle Seahawks. They picked Charles Cross. I gave him a B. Looked looked pretty good. Had a really young offensive line in Seattle, and he gave up just as much sacks as Evan Neal, who I gave a B to, and but better run blocker. So I'm liking that Charles Cross pick. Looks really good right now.
Yeah, I went B plus. Really like this pick here with Charles Cross. I mean, a lot of the flack that Russell Wilson took was the offensive line was very poor. And so they went in, the year they get rid of Russell Wilson, they finally addressed the offensive line and get somebody in there. And obviously it worked out. Geno Smith had a career year, led to an extension. And so part of that was the big reason was because of Cross there. So a great pick here. I really like the player. And so B plus for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So at pick 10, we've got another really easy one to talk about. The New York Jets make their second pick in the top 10 and pick Garrett Wilson. I think this one's easy. I give him an A plus, offensive rookie of the year.
Yep. I mean, not really much to go there. I mean, obviously they could have had their pick between either of the two Ohio State wide receivers, Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, I think, widely respected as the better of the two, and so definitely their wide receiver one. Definitely looking forward to see how he's what he can do with an actual quarterback and Aaron Rodgers. He was able to put together a rookie of the year with three different quarterbacks.
Yeah, yeah.
Wilson, Joe Flacco was in there for a bit. So able to put up those, with that hodgepodge of a group of quarterbacks. So to have a guy like Aaron Rod out there throwing balls to him, he, he could just set the league on fire. So very high on Garrett Wilson, A plus pick for sure.
Perfect. All right, number 11, we've got the New Orleans Saints. We're looking at Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson's running mate at the Ohio State University. I gave it a C. And the reason I gave it a C is Chris Olave was my favorite player out of this draft. He was who I wanted the Packers to trade up and get. The Saints did that, but in the trade up and get, they gave up a top 10 pick to go up and get a wide receiver. And I think that's just a lot to give up. I mean, hindsight, we have that. That's what we're grading on. I think they gave up a lot with a team that doesn't have has a lot more, if they were a wide receiver away to give up a top 10 pick, okay. But they weren't, right? The wide receiver wasn't solving their, they couldn't even win their division with him balling out. Nothing against him. I think they just gave up too much to go up and get him.
Interesting. Yeah. So I didn't really kind of put that into account here when I did that because I just kind of looked at the player and the value he brings to the team. So I gave that pick an A. Just because Chris Olave, I mean, same thing, very quarterback challenge team, going from Jameis Winston at the beginning and then finishing out the year with Aaron Darnold. Taysom Hill, sprinkle him a little bit in there as well. Able to have 72 catches for over 1,000 yards. Very impressive to do in a system like that. He was my pick. He was my pick for actually offensive rookie of the year. Um, Obviously didn't Garrett Wilson beat him out, but I think it was an A pick. The Saints love their Ohio State wide receivers, so to pair them up, we'll see what happens when Michael Thomas gets back, and just kind of see and who they have as their quarterback moving forward. Oh, Derek Carr, I forgot. Yeah, so Derek Carr. So I mean, Derek Carr has some weapons there. So Chris Olave can very flourish in that system. So I like the pick. I gave it an A.
Yeah, and if I was just grading the pick, I'd give it an A as well. I just think that there's a lot that went into getting up into him. I really like Chris Olave. We've got our third wide receiver drafted back to back to back, and the Detroit Lions picked Jameson Williams. I gave him a C. Right, he was hurt, tore his ACL in the AFC or the SEC championship game, I believe it was. Tore his ACL in that. Didn't really play. When he did play the last couple weeks, he was more punt returner, right? Coming gingerly back. Looked fast out there. Looked like he could be great in the future, but from this season, we didn't really see him. So I just gave him a nice even keel C.
Yeah, I went B plus. Just because obviously you weren't expecting hardly anything from him this season, rightfully so. But the Lions risked it to get the biscuit and went up and took him at this spot to be somebody moving forward. So when he came back, he flashed speed, he flashed awareness, he flashed like what we saw from him at Alabama. So I think now a whole year removed from that injury, more time in the system. Uh, I think he could be phenomenal. Um, I think he would be considered potential comeback player of the year candidate because he was injured in college. I'm not for sure if that would qualify as far as the NFL is concerned, but in this case, he is to me. Somebody that can come back there and just completely ball out after he's fully healed. And so they swung big here, the Lions, to get a guy in the future. I think it'll pay off for him.
Yeah, definitely. And the Lions do what the Lions do, right? They made the trade with the division rival Minnesota Vikings to go up and get them, right? They traded from 32 all the way up to 13. Then they traded Hawkinson this year. We've talked about that. So the Lions and Vikings conspirating against the Packers. Don't like that at all. But that brings us to pick 13 with the Philadelphia Eagles. They picked Jordan Davis from Georgia. I gave that a C minus, right? Dude didn't play, mountain of a man, very very big. When he did play, he could stop the run, but he was too big and not powerful enough to get to the quarterback. Literally had 0 sacks this year. Kind of struggled, got hurt and then struggled to come back from that injury. I don't think he was too impactful this season for pick 13, but that's kind of what the Eagles do, right? They draft for the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think, this is, we talk about the unlucky number 13. I think this is kind of both lucky and lucky. I think Jordan Davis is a very quality player. I gave it a C plus. It's just due to the fact that he kind of started off strong, kind of fizzled it out, and then was injured. And so it's hard to come back. It's hard to play your rookie season, and it's also hard to come back and play after an injury. So I think the value is there to be better and to be a contributor here moving forward, especially this season. But as far as last season with that injury, it's just hard to evaluate somebody whenever they're injured for a good chunk of the season. So I went C plus here.
Yep. I completely agree. Speaking of C plus, that's what I gave our next pick in the Baltimore Ravens, Kyle Hamilton. Went C plus. Dude had so much hype going into the draft, right? We heard over and over again how this Kyle Hamilton was the guy of this draft, right? And then he get into the league and he didn't flash at all. Was just decent. I mean, not a bad player at all. Kyle Hamilton's a dog, but no flashes, no Minka flashes, no Derwin James, right? Nothing, no what we expect out of Brian Branch, just kind of good everywhere but not great anywhere. So I just went with the good everywhere not great anywhere grade of C plus.
You gave him half a point better than me. I went C. Only made 4 starts. He played in all 16 games. I mean, he was contributing there, but just not like a. He was very hyped. Whenever I saw him go to the Ravens, I was like, "Frick, the Ravens got him." As a guy with the team in the AFC, I was like, "Frick, they got Kyle Hamilton." Turns out it really didn't matter. He didn't really affect anything either way, good or bad. He just kind of there, right? So average, first year, so C.
Yep. I agree. So now we've got the Houston Texans on the clock at 15. They picked Kenyon Green, and I gave this a D minus. Dude wasn't good. Gave up 4 sacks, 12 QB pressures, or 12 QB hits, and 31 pressures, making Davis Mills' job just even harder on him than it had to be. This was a reach when it happened. It's still a reach a year later. Dude just doesn't doesn't work as a first rounder.
Yep, this is one of my Fs. Definitely gave it an F. Everything that you just said. I mean, an incredible reach here, and obviously the reaches you try to swing big because if they pay off, it's fantastic. But when it doesn't pay off, it's just on hindsight looking at it, it's just man, you guys really f that up. And so because you effed it up, it's a big F for me.
Yep, I can't argue with that. At 16, we have the Washington Commanders making their pick in Johan Dotson out of Penn State. I gave it a C plus, right? Dude flashed. He had 7 touchdowns. He caught about 50% of his targets, reeled in 520-ish receiving yards with that QB stable that was anything but stable. Carson Wentz came in. Taylor Heineke, right, an XFL backup quarterback, had thrown him a lot of passes. So I think this was a reach, but I think we've seen the flashes of it, which is why I gave it a C plus.
Yeah, I did B plus. I really like those flashes. I think the flashes show a lot of potential. I'm excited to see with Eric Bieniemy can go in there and build with that offense. You got Scary Terry on there. You've got John Dotson here. It looks like Sam Howell's going to be the guy. We'll see what happens at quarterback, but just trying to see how that works out. But definitely showed flashes of potential where he can definitely be a touchdown scoring machine. I really think so. Just a great player, and I think with a lot of upside, and especially in that new offense that EB is going to bring over there, I think he can flash a lot. So I did B plus.
Yep. I'm excited about Jahan Dotson next year. So going to the 17th pick, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers. and they picked Zion Johnson, and I gave him a D plus. Dude, this was another one of those inside lineman reach. I've talked about it multiple times. Do not draft inside linemen in the first round. Not worth it. And this just shows gave up 5 sacks as an inside lineman is insane. 7 QB hits, 28 hurries. Dude wasn't up to par. And imagine what they could have been if they would have drafted a left tackle or a right tackle when their tackles went down. So just a bad draft pick for me here.
Yeah, I did C minus. I think he was honestly drafted just for depth, not as a position to start, a player to start. Obviously, he was forced into that whenever the injury gods, struck down their offensive line, and he wasn't able to meet the challenge there. So I think when we're looking at that, what he was kind of forced into, a very poor performance. And so I think this pick was honestly looking more for depth in the future for him to. They saw the potential he has to do it, and obviously he was forced to come in, and so it's definitely a C minus pick for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Strange picks and that inside guard. But we got the Titans at 18. The Tennessee Titans picked Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. This was one of the guys that I wanted to Green Bay to get so bad, and I'm glad they didn't because I gave him a D. QB, there's a QB injury. They had Malik Willis step in by like game 4. The Titans told Malik Willis not to throw the ball. So that kind of made it hard to give a huge evaluation on Treylon Burks. He did have some pretty nice, that sideline snag. I think that's like his one highlight, but dude struggled to get on the field, struggled with asthma and couldn't, out of shape preseason. And drops. He just dropped everything coming his way that early in the season. So just didn't look at par with the other wide receivers taken in this first round.
Yeah, I went D plus. I just think they got rid of AJ Brown and they tried to bring Traylon Burks in to be that replacement, and you just can't replace a guy like AJ Brown. And they didn't really do a good job of that. I don't think it was very forward thinking of them. They just decided they really didn't want to pay. Um, they really didn't want to pay for AJ Brown, and so they shipped him off, and now they're paying the price for it because they have absolutely zero offensive skill players on that team besides Derrick Henry, and he can only do so much for the team. So D plus here for me.
Yeah. All right. We're moving on to pick 19 at New Orleans Saints. Trevor Penning, offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa. As much as it pains me to say it coming from Northern Iowa, this is my first F. This guy, you might say, why he got an F? He tore his ACL. We really didn't see him. Dude got demoted twice during preseason, couldn't even make the field. Demoted to third team over second team. Then he got kicked out of 3 practices for fighting and being an awful teammate. And he tore his ACL in preseason week 3. So he didn't even have that much time to become an awful teammate. And it just amazes me, right? Come on, man. Represent Iowa a little bit better than that. This guy looked problematic from the jump. The Saints like to reach and get people. So
Yeah, I'm with you. An F. When you F the picks, you get an F. For all the reasons that you said, I was really high on Trevor Penning coming out of college for this draft. I really liked him a lot, and it's just one of those guys where you squander your opportunities. Obviously, the injury isn't completely your fault, but when you squander the opportunities by being a bad player, a bad locker room guy, I don't really feel sorry for you. So the value was there at the pick. Obviously, didn't pan out just based on his kind of character and his attitude. And so for that, you get an F.
Yep. Now we've got on to pick 20. The Pittsburgh Steelers drafted our only quarterback in the first round, Kenny Pickett. Baby hands Pickett, right? Small hands. I gave him a D minus. Dude threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Had the worst rookie season out of any quarterback that we've seen in the past 5 years. Only got didn't even hit 25,000 yards. Had decent wide receiver corps to work around him, right? Dante Johnson, not high in George Pickens, but the dude's good. And then there's another one there that I'm missing. Najee Harris is there. Just doesn't seem like a first round franchise quarterback that he was drafted to be.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a very a good quarterback class by any means. So the Steelers, are trying their best to replace Ben Roethlisberger. They didn't really have a plan in succession. They drafted Kenny Pickett here. I gave it a C, just because how it turned out. He wasn't really designed to be the starter. They had Mitch Trubisky in there to be the starter, And obviously Trubisky is just horrible, and so that didn't work out. And I think when Kenny Pickett got in there, he played, within his means, and he played well. I mean, he played better than Mitch Trubisky did, better than Rudolph. Was able to win the starting job and really never look back. Whenever he was injured, the team played better when he was in there. When he was not in there, the team played infinitely worse, and so that's got to mean something. So, um, he had to come in and play earlier than I think he was meant to. I think they kind of had Trubisky try to be that gap player, to kind of get him more experience, get him more accustomed. He was kind of forced in there because they just could not take Trubisky anymore. And so they put him in there. And so they were better when he was in there. So for me, I think it's somewhat of a quality pick. I didn't really like him as a franchise quarterback, but it appears that he might be, moving forward. We'll kind of see how it shakes out. But so he gets a C for me.
Okay. Okay. I understand that. Right. Pick 21. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs drafting Trent McDuffie. I gave him a B, right? Stepped up. He wasn't supposed to be something crazy, right? You had the Chiefs have L'Jarius Sneed to be that. They put him in the slot, but he's kind of their best cornerback. They're drafting, kind of cornerback two, maybe outside guy. I thought he looked good.
Yeah, I gave him a B as well. Kind of came in there, was injured for a bit, missed 4 weeks, and then kind of came back and kind of got into the swing of things. But I mean, it's hard for. I mean, you won the Super Bowl, right? So it's hard, to say it was a bad pick. As far as their cornerbacks go, great value here. I obviously traded up to get him, and so definitely a B for me with tremendous upside, especially as he gets in there and continues to excel there. But um, to come in there and be a part of a Super Bowl team, is definitely something to be impressed by.
Yep. Now we've got my team's first pick, the Green Bay Packers. They selected Quay Walker from Georgia. I gave him a C. He flashed some great aspects at some point in times, but then he had those two bonehead plays. The same thing. He can't touch the referee. Someone's got to tell him that. I don't know if he knows that, but definitely a work in progress. But I like the flashes that I seen from him.
Yeah, I gave that pick a D, and it's because, well, I mean, one, I'm not really a big fan of linebackers going in the first round, um, but his stuff off the field. I mean, he got thrown out of 2 games, pushing the ref, pushing a Lions defensive player. Just a lot of stuff like that where you kind of look and you're like, bro, like, what are you doing? Um, and so for all those reasons, just D for
Yeah,
me.
I understand that. Dude's got to keep his hands to himself. All right, now we've got pick 23, the Buffalo Bills. They picked KR Elam, and I gave it a C. Didn't get a ton of playing time. Really didn't play it at much at all. But in that playing time, he had 2 picks. Definitely a player that will grow in Buffalo. They want to use him a lot. Tre'Davious White seemed to work out before he got hurt, so maybe he can grow into that. I just gave him a C. I thought he was decent for the playing time that we did see him in.
Yeah, I mean, I went as far as to give it a B, just because I think, as a strong defense as the Bills were, to come in there and try to get playing time, be successful, was a tough ask, even if you are taking the first round. But I think he made the most with the limited reps that he did get. Obviously, a pair of picks, is good, and showed a lot of what he can do. Why they drafted him here at this spot. And so I gave it a B. I think he's got tremendous upside, especially within that defensive system in Buffalo.
Right. Now we've got the Dallas Cowboys picking at 24. They picked Tyler Smith. I gave this an A, right? Was kind of drafted to be a backup, not really expected to start. Injuries took over that Cowboys offensive line. He stepped up and he became the dude on that offensive line. And I don't think he's better than a lot of the guys that I gave B's to up earlier in the draft, but he was selected a lot later, not really looked at to be that starter, and that he did exceed that. It just gave him the nod to A for me.
I agree. I did A as well. I think when you're able to come in there and be successful, kind of right off the bat, especially at this value of a pick here in the later half of the first round. I mean, it's kind of a head scratcher pick when it happened. You're kind of like, really, that's interesting. But say what you want about the Cowboys, but they do an extremely good job of drafting in the first round. They do a really good job, and I think they nailed this pick. So A for me.
Yeah. All right. Now we've got the Baltimore Ravens picking here. They picked the Iowa boy, Tyler Lindenbaum, and I gave it an A. Dude looked like a top 5 center in the league, only gave up 3 sacks. only 2 QB hits, a solid center, very hard offensive line to play. Also with Lamar kind of doing Lamar things back there, right? The lines, the pocket constantly shifting to one side or the other, never knowing really where he's going to go. That's a rough position to play. We've talked about how important center is and how kind of forgotten that is. And so I gave this an A.
Yeah, I went A. I went A as well. I mean, started all 17 games. Was a quality player throughout the season. I mean, for all the reasons you said, not really much else to debate here, except he went in and he played the position at a high level like he was supposed to do. The same way he played in Iowa, he translated that very well, I thought, into the NFL, and excited to see kind of how he continues to grow. But yeah, A pick.
Yep. Now we've got the Jets on the clock at 26 with their last first round pick in this draft. They picked Jermaine Johnson Jr., traded back up to get him. I gave him a C. He got 3 sacks, 14 total pressures. It wasn't outstanding, wasn't supposed to be outstanding. And I think this guy will look great in a Green Bay uniform next year.
Yeah, I mean, I went C plus. Same thing. I mean, obviously, he was falling there. They kind of traded back up there to go after and get him because I think they see the value that he can bring. Obviously, in the rookie season, and a pretty good defense there in New York on the Jets showed a little bit there, nothing too much. But I think it's there is potential in the pick as he works there in that defense was solid to get better on the things that he needs to get better at. And so I not really a reach. They kind of went after him to make sure they got him. I thought he might fall to the Chiefs at this point when he was falling there. So somebody I thought the Chiefs might go and get. I was excited about, but the Jets kind of went in and got him, and so I went C plus there. Definitely want to see more from him, but I think the potential's there.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock at 27, and they picked linebacker Devin Lloyd. I had a C plus for him. Started red hot, looked like the steal of the draft. Was about halfway through the season, he was the defensive rookie of the year, and the NFL offense confused him. He looked lost at the end. I don't even think he played week 18. It's going to take some time for him to actually figure out NFL offense. And could someone please tell him how to tackle? That guy leads with his head more times than not.
Yeah, so I went C. Kind of for the same things, but just I don't value the linebacker position in the first round really. That's what's so hard for me to do that. Um, obviously when you get a guy that's considered more of a outside linebacker like an edge rusher, obviously it's kind of different. But when we're talking about a strictly inside linebacker, like he is for me, it's hard to value that as the actual first round pick. So Flash's potential is there for sure. But as far as where he was drafted as a first round pick here, I have to go see.
All right. So then we've got the second and last Green Bay Packer pick in this draft, Devonte Wyatt from Georgia, pair of Georgia teammates coming over to Green Bay. I give this an F. Dude couldn't see the field. We had Dean Lowry out there rushing, and I don't know if you know much about Dean Lowry, but he's not very good. Sorry, Minnesota, you're going to figure that out this year. And he still couldn't get out there. This dude, I don't know what his problem was, but he just wasn't on the field. F pick.
F pick. Yeah, I went D plus. Just because I think there is value in getting Georgia players. They are very good quality players. Same thing I would say for any Bama player. I think the two most preeminent, throw in, Ohio State for sure. But those teams I just think are going to get quality players when they see the field and when they work out. And so I'm hopeful that he'll be able to figure it out and get out there. So I see the potential there. And so that's kind of why I have it there as a D plus because I think that there is value there. It just hasn't panned out yet.
Yep. So now we've got the Patriots with the strangest pick of the draft, Cole Strange. This one got me a D. The dude was the Rams who didn't have any picks were actually brought him in for an interview. They thought they could get him in like the late 4th, early 5th round. The Patriots jumped the gun and got him. This is a Bill Belichick doing Bill Belichick things. Had 5 sacks and 23 pressures. Just that's ego over everything.
Yeah, I mean, I went C minus. I think there was good in there, and I think there was more bad than good, and so I'm feeling kind of generous to the C minus just because I'm trying to give Bill Belichick the benefit of the doubt here, of him maybe seeing something that I can't or that most people didn't. Um, no one I think had him as their first round grade at all, and And so I think maybe that's kind of one of those things where ego comes in like, man, if I can get this guy, no one else thought he was a first rounder and he can be really great. I'm the greatest coach ever. I'm the greatest evaluator ever. I do think ego plays into it. And so for that reason, I give a C minus here because I think that there could be potential. I just don't know if I really trust Bill Belichick anymore to get that out of his players.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So now we've got the Kansas City Chiefs making their second pick and last pick in this draft at 30. They picked George Karlaftis from Purdue. I gave him an A. 21 run stops, 7 sacks, 48 total pressures, and the dude had some of the biggest sacks on the biggest stages. As the playoffs got more and more, win or go home, the dude stepped up to the plate. That's big as a rookie. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, I went A as well. I mean, 7 sacks. Aiden Hutchinson only had, about 3 sacks more than you. So you're competing with, the second pick in the draft at the same position. Obviously, having a lot of help with Flint Clark on the other side and Chris Jones in the middle, but making most of those opportunities. I mean, that's not his fault that he's surrounded by those players and that opens up lanes for him. So definitely, started off slow. But as you said, as the season got on, especially into the playoffs, was a very good contributing factor to the defense and to them winning the Super Bowl. So I really liked what I saw out of Karlaftis. Excited for him to get another, offseason. Here he's working with Tamba Hali. He's working out with Tamba Hali to get better now in the offseason. Obviously, a whole nother, year to be with Spags and that defense, get more coaching, get more familiar with it. We'll see what happens right now as Frank Clark has left, see how that kind of changes the defensive dynamic. Maybe it opens up for him for a bigger role. But I think it's a pick. I think, a good quality pick here, especially at pick
30. Yep. I agree. So then we got the Bengals picking 31, and they went with Dax Hill from Michigan, right? Played Michigan. Dax Hill. I gave him a C minus. The dude didn't see the field very much at all, and when he did play, he allowed a passer rating of 35.4. But also, those are little skewed stat because I think he only got like 8 or 9 targets, so that's a little bit skewed. He got like 8 targets, allowed 9 catches. So hopefully he turns out because I think he's what they're turning to be their starter next year. But I just don't see that from now.
Yeah, I did. I went C. Definitely, just there at the end of the round here, the Super Bowl runner-up, just as a team, trying. I think this is more of a luxury pick for the Bengals, and so that might be not why it works out, but he's definitely going to be thrown into a bigger role now as they're losing. They lost Jesse Bates. They lost another. I can't remember. His name escapes me. Von Bell. They lost Von Bell. So those caliber safeties that were there that were part of that Super Bowl contending squad, and so he's definitely going to be forced to go in there. So I think it's better set up now instead of having to do it 100% when he's coming off as a rookie, in his sophomore season. So there are. He did have that learning curve and that practice and getting behind those veteran guys to see kind of how to be an NFL safety. And so I think that will be beneficial. But as of right now, just based off the limited reps that we've seen from him, I think C is a good grade for him here.
Yep. And then I've got to round it off the Minnesota Vikings. They acquired this pick by trading with the Lions, who acquired it from trading with the Rams. So they picked Lewis Cine from Georgia. Gave him a C. Dude didn't play a snap. So I just had to give him what I graded him out of the draft. He was my 3rd or 4th safety. Didn't really have a first round grade on him. I thought Minnesota kind of stretched, but at the end of the first, it's not really a stretch. So I just gave him a C.
Yeah, man. At this point, just because you drafted somebody and they didn't play, I mean, I think you can't say it's an F or a D because they didn't really play. So that's not fair to the player or for the team to play because we didn't really get to see him play. We didn't get to see how that evaluation turned out. So I think C is fair. That's what I gave it as well. And honestly, you could just put it as an NA, incomplete, because you just really not enough to go on. And so I think, to see just being average there is just, if we have to give a grade, I think is the best grade that you can.
Yep. All right. That rounds up our draft grades. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. Tell us where we got wrong, where your team knocked it out of the park. Tell us where we got right. Want to hear your, sound out in the comments. Let us know what you think.